Welcome back, everyone! Enjoying Castlevania month? That's good to hear. Today, it's time for me to talk about one of the most overlooked games in the series. I speak, of course, of Castlevania Judgment. Yeah, I have a few friends who love this game, but by and large, this fighting game spin-off often gets ignored or flat out hated. With that in mind, I don't think I can do this alone. Which is why I brought some help.
Hello everyone, the Green Scorpion here.
Wait, Oscar? What are you doing here? Where did Z go?
He kinda got lost in the mad forest.
Okay, that is the last time I get directions from a frickin' Cyclops.
Anyways, Castlevania Judgment is a game that Adam and I both enjoy in spite of its flaws. And believe me, this game is flawed. But that doesn't stop us from enjoying this crude gem of a game. So today we're going to look at how this game handled the various characters of the franchise who made it into it. The game's cast is a who's who of the series' history, though some characters were handled better than others, which is why we're going to give our 25 cents on every single one of them.
Hey, that's my shtick!
What? It's fun to say!
Okay, we're gonna look at their personality, stories, and playstyle in making our decisions here. Also, we're basing these rankings only on their appearance in Judgment, and not on their appearance in the rest of the series. With all that said, have at you! Well, we have to start somewhere, don't we?
Yeah, like we said, Judgment handled some characters better than others, and to be honest, Maria Renard was arguably butchered the most. True, she was a child in Rondo of Blood, but she added a lighter touch to that game, and time was good to her personality in Symphony of the Night.
In Judgment, however, she was annoying like you wouldn't believe. She tries way too hard to act like a stereotypical magical girl, and she plays herself up as being more important than she actually is. And her story mode is... seriously? Look, Maria, you're a little young to be having A-cup angst.
As for her fighting style, it's absolutely asinine. The combos are certainly there, but the clunkiness and lethargic pace of her attacks feels seriously unnatural.
I assume they tried to make her a sort of rush-down caster hybrid with Maria, and her weapon apparently being her owl, Asuka.
Ugh.
What?
That name... why does it bother me so much?
Anyway, it just doesn't work. Her fighting style is extremely difficult to get used to, and her attacks kind of linger for a while. By that I mean the animations take forever, so most of her damage will come from the opponent not knowing when to stop blocking for a punish.
Especially that stupid, freaking dash attack.
It's so stupid!
Good boy, Asuka!
Sypha Belnades didn't get much characterization in Dracula's Curse, though that's to be expected in an NES platformer. Even so, her character in Judgment leaves a lot to be desired.
Yada yada to say. I know that Sypha needed a character and a personality for this game, but that is no excuse to make her such a stuck-up, self-righteous, social justice wanker with a stick up her ass. Keep in mind, this incarnation was plucked from before Dracula's Curse, but still.
As a hunter of the church, Sypha takes her duties way too seriously, always going on about righteousness and her oppressed brethren, and she feels so generic that it's groan-worthy. But that's not the worst of it, it's her story mode that ticks me off.
You know, for someone who goes on about the wicked and the righteous, she was an absolutely terrible judge of character. Really? Dismissing Carmella and Shanoa as evil from first impressions alone? Not cool, lady!
Be that as it may, there is something to enjoy in her playstyle. As I expressed in my top 10 spellcasters, Sypha is a fighting game caster done right. She has several attacks that utilize her staff that then combo into her myriad of spells incorporating the elemental trinity. It's not the easiest arsenal to get used to, but it is a lot of fun.
Not to mention, her hyper attack, Disintegrate, is quite spectacular, summoning her Grimoire to ravage the opponent with the destructive power of nature.
Unfortunately, her personality is what's keeping her at the low end of this list.
Seriously, what do Grant and Trevor see in this woman? I can only imagine she developed during the events of Dracula's Curse.
All power pales next to the forces of nature.
Oh no.
What is it, Adam?
Eric Lecarde.
Why, Judgment? Just... why?
Speaking of characters that got butchered, Eric didn't get much better treatment than Maria and Sypha. In fact, in terms of the personality he was given, he's arguably worse than both of them.
Seriously, in Bloodlines, he rocked that spear of his like a total badass, and was even an interesting character in Portrait of Ruin when he appeared to Jonathan and Charlotte as the enigmatic Wind. However, Judgment plucked him out of his childhood, and as a kid, he was an arrogant brat.
We're being dead serious here. He's completely overconfident in the power of his Lecarde spear, to the point where he thinks that he can face Dracula by himself with just the spear. By contrast, Lecarde, the spear's creator mind you, says himself that the spear is meant to work with the whip, not overshadow it. Also, Eric's voice is just grating.
So while his personality is worse than Sypha and Maria, what exactly is it that's putting him higher? Well, much to both our pleasure and pain, his playstyle is freaking fantastic. Eric's spear gives him a very long melee range when compared to most characters in the game, and while it is heavy, Eric has no trouble doing combos with it.
Not to mention, some attacks have Eric slam the ground to create a shockwave that is great for area control, and he has some of the best aerial attacks in the game. The only thing that really lacks in his fighting style is his hyper attack. It's just kind of boring.
So, yeah, he's a fun little spear master, but that's still no excuse for being a prissy little rich boy.
You pitiful fool. Did you honestly think you could win?
Alright, time for the characters that we can be a little more positive about.
What, starting with Ms. Fanservice?
Oh, you're one to talk, Mr. I Love Arcana Heart.
Let me tell you 2 useful pieces of information. 1, Arcana Heart's a good series, and 2, that isn't even remotely related to Carmella. Yeah, we'll admit that Carmella's design caters to the male gaze, but there's a bit more to her than that. Despite her questionable appearance, one thing that is never questioned is her undying loyalty to Dracula.
Everything she does in this game is in service to her master, including beating the living crap out of everyone who dares oppose him. Even in her story mode, you can tell that her devotion is absolute. That's not to say that she doesn't enjoy inflicting pain. She certainly does, because Judgment made her a complete dominatrix.
Carmella brings the pain with a moveset of mixed martial arts, inflicting some pretty effective kicks, along with some slashes from her arm blade.
Oh, and speaking of that arm blade, she uses it in one of my favorite attacks in the game, where she can send it out and use it as a grapple chain.
Oh, now I see why you like her.
Hey! She's a mix of Ivy and Scorpion, but is a vampire! What's not to love?
But the scariest part about Carmella is her hyper attack. She summons an Iron Maiden to trap her opponent, and...
I will give you the greatest of pleasures. Ah, so satisfying. And now, you... I do feel better, but it's only whet my appetite.
Have you ever wondered how the grunts of many video games think? Or what kind of personalities they would have if they were explored to a greater extent? Well, apparently Konami had that idea during the development of Judgment, specifically in the case of Golem.
In the Castlevania series at large, golems are powerful enemies that often appear as bosses. However, this particular golem was granted a measure of sentience once it was trapped in the Time Rift. As such, its story revolves around it searching for what it means to live. It doesn't even really care that much about fighting.
Of course, its story takes a tragic twist when it learns that the Time Rift is the only thing allowing it to remain self-aware. Even knowing that, it still chooses to fight the Time Reaper, sacrificing its sentience with its victory. That's the main thing putting Golem higher than the former entries. For how simple he is, he just has this irresistible charm.
However, this fact is completely offset by the fact that his playstyle is a seriously acquired taste. As expected, Golem is the slowest of the bunch, but is also the strongest when it comes to brute strength. Most, if not all of its attacks deal a huge chunk of damage. The problem is actually hitting with them.
Well, that plays into his other factor. Along with having monstrous strength, Golem can take hits like a boss. Most of its attacks incorporate hyper armor, allowing him to continue his attack even after being hit. Think Little Mac from the new Super Smash Bros.
And I gotta give credit to its finisher. It's simple, and yet there's still that little amount of endearment to it. It may be a simple stone statue, but like most man-made creatures, there's an interesting story behind it all.
Me not want to fight. Do not want.
Among the cast of Judgment, some remained true to their original characters, while others had to be adapted since their personalities weren't defined in their original games. For example, Shanoa's personality remained true to her debut in Order of Ecclesia. For better or worse.
Given that Judgment was released less than a month after Order of Ecclesia, Shanoa's character was probably fresh in the writers' heads during development. Unfortunately for her, considering that her personality was literally stolen from her in Ecclesia's opening, that too carried over into Judgment.
In other words, Shanoa is simply bland. She's 100% serious, 100% of the time, and completely focused on her mission. She also shows no emotion since those were stolen from her as well, and in her story arc, she's all business in her interactions with others. To be fair though, it's better to have a bland personality than an annoying one.
However, what she lacks in her personality, she makes up for in her playstyle. Shanoa plays the role of a magus, and she outclasses Sypha in all aspects. She is able to summon various weapons to fight with, and she combines her weapon affinity with the power of the elements.
You'd think that would be a lot to keep track of, but Shanoa's playstyle feels very fluid and natural. It also makes for one of the best fighting styles in the game to just watch. She even throws in some light and dark spells. If there was one negative though, it would be that her hyper attack is completely forgettable.
He's not kidding, we actually had to look it up just to remember what it was while writing this list. Be it as it may, Shanoa may be a killjoy, but she's still a ton of fun.
That is the power of our glyphs, the mighty art of Ecclesia.
Imposing presence, overwhelming malice, evil you can sense from miles away. Yeah, you know we're talking about Dracula.
As any fan of the series knows, Dracula is the driving force behind the entire series. It's the same thing in Judgment as well. However, this time, there's a bit of a twist. As it turns out, old Fangface is the target of a trans-chronological assassination plot.
You see, a terrifying, powerful demon known as Galamoth has coveted Dracula's throne of darkness from 10,000 years in the future. In order to achieve his goal, he sent his minion, the Time Reaper, to destroy not only Dracula, but his entire era? Okay, how do you destroy time?
It's video games, don't question it.
Does the Nurgsvat not question the Disbong? Seriously, dude, I need an answer for this!
Hey, ask the developers, not me. Of course, Dracula, being, well, Dracula, is his haughty and evil self as always, whether it's lauding his own superiority or relishing his opportunities for revenge against the heroes who brought him down in the past.
His playstyle is rather unique compared to the rest of the cast. In terms of mobility, Dracula is the slowest, period. Even slower than Golem.
But that doesn't necessarily make him a terrible fighter, just different. Instead of the usual rushdown style that a lot of the other characters utilize, Dracula is a trap master. He has a myriad of spells that linger on the field, and with the use of his teleport, it makes for a barrage of cruel mix-ups.
Then there's his hyper attack, Demonic Megiddo. Play-wise, it's a pretty basic finisher. Visually, it's one of the best in the game.
We've seen Dracula a lot throughout the series, but this might be one of his best incarnations. Except when you have to fight him in castle mode.
Good and evil are just words. Power always wins.